Okay, let me guess. You're not someone that is afraid to look at yourself. You have probably spent years understanding yourself, taken responsibilities, questioned your patterns, confronted uncomfortable truths. For the most, you deeply understand yourself. You know how to work on yourself, and yet something feels stuck because your life still hasn't fully caught up to what you know. I'm not going to simplify you into a box, into a manifestation failure or a productivity problem. But I'm also not going to let you keep hiding from your own power. Because what if the reason that you feel stuck in any kind of way hasn't anything to do with you not being healed enough? What if you have unknowingly built your identity around someone who is healing? I want you to tune in for a moment and don't answer this too quickly. But who would you be when healing was no longer a part of your identity? What I've realized is that you don't become free when the wound all in a suddenly disappears. You become free when you stop identifying with it. The moment that your identity no longer depends on it. Identity doesn't just shape behavior, it filters possibility. So, who am I and what am I allowed to experience? It determines what feels familiar, what feels safe, what feels possible. And every decision you make, every action you take gets filtered through one answer, and that is, who do I believe I am in the now moment? As long as I still see myself as someone who is recovering, someone who's healing, someone who's trying to become whole, then without realizing, I keep organizing my life around recovering. I got tears in my eyes. I'm not crying. I promise. I'm healed. No. Wait. So then I keep organizing my life around being in process, being in recovery, not around living, being, seeing what is in front of me instead of running from something that is already far behind me, especially when I have the power within me to make the decision to move on. At some point, healing isn't a part of the solution anymore, I figured. And I still see that that's where a lot of people get stuck, because that is where healing becomes the safest place to avoid what life is asking from you. One of those things might be to bridge the gap between spiritual concepts and the raw, practical reality of being human. You cannot experience a new life while you keep being loyal to the identity that survived the old one. There's a difference between understanding yourself and trusting yourself deeply. You can understand every trauma, every childhood wound, every attachment style, nervous system response, and still not trusting yourself enough to approach life differently. The goal isn't to become the best version of our wounded self. The goal is to stop organizing our lives around the wound altogether. Because most of us think that we are healing the wound, when in reality, what we are often protecting is the identity that formed itself around the wound. Here is how I've started looking at it. What if life is an evolutionary process of contrast, where you inherently have to experience different versions of the self in order to evolve? Where in the core, you have to move through 3 different identities: the wounded self, the healed self, and eventually the congruent self. And the problem only exists when there's a lag in transition, where you get stuck in the process. Eventually, I don't really believe in getting stuck, but for the lack of better words, you can get delayed, where the identity that helped you survive, overcome things, may now be standing in the way, preventing you from living fully. And maybe to get unstuck, or let's say to experience something different, your life doesn't require more healing. Maybe it just requires one decision: to stop introducing yourself to life through an old identity, to stop sleeping on the bridge. It's supposed to be a bridge. You're supposed to walk over it, not sleep on it, under it. A conscious willingness to stop introducing yourself to life through an old identity. To allow your attention, your awareness, to shine so completely on all the parts that once protected you, that they cannot do anything else than finally realize that that job is done. Because I don't believe that letting go is something you do. I believe that letting go naturally happens when something has fully served its purpose. By completion. Completion, let's go. Not force or resistance. Feeling stuck, persistent pain is often life's way of letting you know that there is another way to live. It's a catalyst for movement. We often ask, what is the purpose of suffering? But if you would like to approach that from your own inherent power, you can make it meaningful by asking what it's trying to move you towards. That's another idea that never sat very well with me. The idea that people are addicted to suffering. It's not completely wrong, but it's incomplete, crude. In a sense of your system becoming familiar with certain emotional states, and even when very uncomfortable, they feel safer than uncertainty. So you start recreating situations, even when they are painful. But the word addiction almost implies that you are seeking the suffering. Well, in reality, you are just unfamiliar with peace. Something much deeper is happening? What if you are not addicted to suffering? What if you are just afraid of who you will have to become without it? Because if you no longer organize your identity around your wounds, if you no longer introduce yourself through what happened to you, who are you? What is left? Maybe the life that you are truly longing for doesn't ask for more information, more research, more healing. Maybe it begins the moment that you trust yourself enough to stop introducing yourself through who you used to be.